Hi, I'm Jane Skuse. This is Nick Gradwell of Gladwell. I can't believe I got your name wrong. Founder CEO of Amberley Innovations. We're here again to talk about Nick's business. The core of your business, Nick, lies in helping people to streamline business processes, to automate tasks, and free up time to focus on success. I think anyone thinking about that would immediately think that sounds great, but getting to that point might cause some disruption in my company. If I were a potential customer, I'd really want to understand your engagement process and how you go about putting those changes in place within a company.
Yeah.
How obviously, automating processes is complex. How do you kind of begin to engage a customer?
So I mean, we typically get customers coming to us either with a specific problem that they're trying to solve,
Yeah,
or that they understand a need for automation, right? So we tend not to get those people who don't know that there's a problem. So although we have those two people come in that way. We tend to adopt a process exactly the same, no matter who we're talking to. And actually, the first thing you need to do is look at. There are a number of considerations you should be looking at, right? First of all, it's you've got to think about people. So if you're looking to change your business in any kind of way, so whether that's restructuring a business, or whether you're moving office, or whether you're introducing a piece of software,
yeah,
you've got to consider everybody who's involved, because when you're with any change, any kind of change has to be considered. So the change management piece is what we work with. Often we're working with the CEO or the leaders of a business, and they have a level of understanding of what they're trying to achieve and why they're trying to do it. However, when that percolates down to the rest of the employees, you need to explain that and make sure that they're considered in that. So first of all, the first thing that we do when we're engaging with a business is, consider the people first. What is the impact on the people? How is it going to affect them? What sort of disruption is it going to cause to their day-to-day life? And that comes in two ways. So when you talk disruption, you can talk about whilst you're working through the project.
yeah.
And then once the project is in place and is up and running and adding value to the business, what kind of disruption is it causing them? So when we say disruption in that sense, we're thinking more about what are the changes in the way that we're going to work on a day-to-day basis, right? So
I would. Sorry to interrupt you, but I would say that from my experience, that people first, your engagement, people first engagement is that's unusual. It sounds to me not what you would immediately think when you think of bringing in kind of automation.
no, it isn't. And people first has come through the scars and the wrinkles that I bear on this face, right?
Yes.
If you don't think of that approach first, then it doesn't matter how good your solution is. If people aren't comfortable or unclear, then you're going to hit problems.
So it's a part of what you do is the engagement with the people.
Yeah, and change management is when we roll anything out, it's a key part of it. Transformational processes are really important. So we have a standard process that we follow through on that. We have a communications plan and templates that we work with staff. I mean, it depends on the size of the change. Some things, when we're just automating a small piece, say we're just coming and doing a small automation where we're trying to pull data from two sources and put it in a spreadsheet for somebody. And we often do that as a small introductory project, that sort of thing. The impacts on the rest of the business are usually very positive and very easy. And so you make sure everybody knows what's going on, and those kinds of things are fine. If you're involved in changing the way that a large number of people engage, change the way they're working on a daily basis, or you're asking, say, the IT team to support a new platform, or there's new software involved, then you have to go through a larger, more involved transformation and change management process.
And the larger the organisation, presumably, the more complicated and involved that is.
Yeah, yes, usually. I mean, it depends on the nature of the business and what they do.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, typically like with all businesses, the larger they are, typically the less agile in terms of the way they operate. Although that is changing, we're finding. But the other side is larger businesses are probably more familiar with managing change and transformation, just because that's part of how an organisation grows to the size it is often.
Yeah. So you said that you might go in and do a small change project as your first step with a company. Could you explain kind of what your process is after that? You clearly have a very established method.
Yes. So the first thing is do they know what they want? So when we're working with a client, do you actually truly understand what you want? And it's at that point that you need to engage again many members of staff to understand what the process is. So if there's a process you're going to change, let's use an example of, we've got a CRM system that's interfacing with a finance system. Getting the data from A to B is getting data out of the CRM system is clunky and involves a lot of people sending files around, and that works in both directions. Finance, when they get to month end, are often in a position where they haven't got all the information that they need. That would be quite a typical project that we'd work for. So in that case, what we get the main users of the system and the main people who feel the most pain.
Yeah.
And we sit down and get them to map that process in depth. So what is your as-is, what we call the as-is process? How does it work now? Where is it broken? And then what would it likely, all technology aside and all possibility aside, what would be the perfect solution?
How does it look at the end?
Yeah, exactly that. And so what we do then is we look at how we get from A to B, and is it possible to get the ideal solution? And if not, what compromises are there? And once we've defined that, then we can start to work more closely. So getting that deep understanding of what the new process needs to be, then we can determine who's going to be involved, what departments are going to be involved, what processes need to change, and we start mapping that out and changing it. And look for, one of the things we often look for when we look for an ideal solution, we often find during those that they tend to be quite a creative discussion. You find that see other opportunity whilst you're doing that to improve other areas of the ways that people work.
Oh, that's interesting. And talking to those people, they're the people that fully understand the process as it is and live day to day with all of its possibilities and failures.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then once we've identified and understood what they're trying to achieve, we look for what's the smallest piece of that we can do to prove it works, right?
So okay.
It's a classic sort of, the terminology, the MVP, the minimum viable product, the whole lean startup movement sort of translates quite well into this. And so we just look to prove what we can do end to end and prove that it's going to add value in the smallest possible way with the minimum amount of disruption. So what's the least we can do in order to deliver?
And this is as your test project, essentially, to go
with any project.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So an initial engagement, there's a level of reticence or fear, and so doing something very small helps to build confidence, so you get quick wins.
And I guess you meet people in the process as well, and they understand who you are and that you're not out to damage things, or you're trustworthy and you're
exactly that. Yeah, you have to establish. If you're deeply looking into their processes day to day, there is a level of concern there that people are going to spot that you're not doing your job optimally or what have you. And
of course,
that's not where we come from. We're just trying to make life easier for everybody. So we start as small as possible on every single project. Yes, there's the introductory project, but as we move through, we always try and do the minimum amount possible, because you'd be surprised at how different the concept at the initial phase changes just between those two stages. Often, the project will take an entirely different life and direction at that point, and you want to be able to be adaptable. You want to have a finished piece of work that is useful to people, but you also want to be able to adapt and change to requirements as they change. So it's anybody who's familiar with the agile principle, we have many iterations, and our iterations build up, as building blocks on top of each other, and we build out the product as we go. So that's how we do it. It's also easier for anybody involved if they're just doing small pieces, right? So we're not just overloading everybody with massive amounts of work.
The other thing that suddenly brings to mind is that with those agile principles, you can that's how you fit a bespoke fit to every company. You absolutely don't impose a set solution to an, you don't try and make it fit into something that you're offering. It's all built from a bespoke, basically.
You're exactly right. We're there to be the servants of that business, and it's not about, it's putting software in and putting new software in, particularly if you're putting a big system, is often there is a need to adapt the business processes in order to make the software, I'm thinking CRM systems, financial systems, ERP systems, in order to get the best out of that, most value, you do need to adapt and change your processes. And to some degree, it's the same here, but largely we are trying to work. Often we're working on smaller projects that are there to get around some of the limitations of what's currently in place. So yeah, we're absolutely there to adapt and change in order to meet the needs of our clients.
Yeah.
So that's the understanding phase. We also, as part of that phase, we create, we do the design piece, and very clearly, again, anybody who's familiar with Agile, we very clearly define, what good looks like. What is our definition of done? Is this actually a realistic solution? And once we get to that point, then we can go into the development phase and we start working on small increments. So we typically try and work on increments of a week. So week to week, we try and show value and change that's achievable and can be realized within the organization. So people have got something in a very small space of time that they can see tangible benefit from very quickly.
That's amazing. Weeks are really very short.
Yes. As life goes on, it doesn't slow down, does it?
They get shorter, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's what we do. So each week we try and develop, test, and build a small function. I mean, that depends on, the infrastructure within a business and all those kinds of things. But typically we follow a week's life cycle, and that's into a test environment or into a test phase. Once people are happy with that, we'll move then into a deployment phase.
Mm-hmm.
So if necessary, we'll work with the organisation and make sure that if it's a larger deployment, that the IT, DevOps are all very well involved, and we are working very closely with those teams in order to make sure that we're deploying safely, securely, making sure that data privacy concerns are all taken in consideration. Are there nothing's going out of remit, because we also offer, as part of our solutions, we offer cloud solutions as well. But everything we make sure is fully GDPR compliant, fully auditable as well. So we look at, once we've done the test phase, we move into an initial test phase, we move into the initial deployment phase, and then what we find, once we've completed that into the deployment phase, we'll move into a measure, monitor, and enhance mode. So once you've got that cycle complete, we need to make sure that we're measuring the value of what we're doing. So if we anticipated a particular automation saving five hours per person per week who's currently doing it manually, then we want to measure that and just make sure that that's the case. Sometimes it's a little bit finger in the air that I only spent I didn't spend any time this week. It used to take me 5 hours. Mm-hmm. That's so we try and measure it. Obviously, we're monitoring the automations at all times. So
I think this is another point about what you do that is obviously people might not realise is the long tail service that you provide. That you go into a company and you stay there. You measure what you've done and you adapt it as necessary. So you're a partner going forward in terms of their automation.
Yeah, and that's reflected in in a number of ways. It's reflected in the way we write the solutions, and it's also reflected in our business, in our model as well, and our charging model. So we try and keep costs as low as possible because we want to have a partnership moving forward. You know, we talked about disruption early on, but once you are automating and automations are going, the last thing you want to be doing is, because businesses change, they change all the time, and processes do. And we write in adaptability and enhancements and changements into all of our services, so that as the business changes, the processes and the automations that we work with you adapt and change as well. So it's an ongoing long-term relationship. And that works very well for us, and it works very well for our clients. So we like that, and we're trying to build a solid relationship with all of our.
Absolutely, and I think that probably feeds into your early stage engagement with them, which is what we're talking about today, really. That if you build that right in the beginning, then you have a potential to. You're looking to be with them long term. You're not looking to come in, and do a short job and leave them. You're looking to make partnerships.
Our view is, if we're coming in and providing a service that's saving you time and money, and we're easy to work with, and we're fun to work with, why on earth would you want that to end, right? Because you're making money or saving money by working with us, so the financial side should be taken care of. We're removing complexity and worry by taking that side of it off your hands. We're constantly looking to enhance and improve things. So the idea is that we're just there as a friend to help you improve your businesses, and obviously we benefit from that as well. So it's we genuinely see the model as a real win-win.
That's fantastic. I think we should draw that to a close, as I'm also time this afternoon. So thank you for watching, and we will be back soon to talk about other aspects of Amberley's work.
Lovely. Thank you, Jenny.
See you soon, Nick.
Cheers.